Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive. We're diving into Chazz Scott's book, Success Starts Within. Achieve Your Potential through Radical Self-Care. And, I think it's safe to say all of our listeners are interested in self-care, right? I mean, who isn't? But this book is about way more than just, face masks and bubble baths.
Right.
This is about really, radically changing your life to achieve those big goals.
It's a completely different way of thinking about success.
Okay, so let's get into it.
All right, so
What exactly is Scott talking about when he says success starts within?
well, the first thing that Scott really emphasizes is that we need to redefine what success even means.
Okay.
He argues that true success isn't actually about all those external achievements, the fancy car,
Right, the big house.
the corner office, all of that.
Yeah.
It's really about cultivating a sense of inner well-being.
So it's more about how you feel than what you have.
Exactly. It's about feeling truly fulfilled and aligned with your purpose.
I love that. And I think that really resonates with a lot of people. So many of us are chasing those external markers of success, but we're not actually finding that deep sense of fulfillment that we're looking for.
It's so true. And Scott uses this really great analogy to illustrate this point. He talks about the golden Buddha.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this golden Buddha.
So he says that we all have this golden Buddha potential within us, but it gets covered up by all these layers, like societal expectations and limiting beliefs and all the distractions of modern life.
So radical self-care is about kind of chipping away at those layers and revealing the gold underneath.
Exactly. And it's interesting, actually, the real golden Buddha statue in Thailand was actually covered in plaster for centuries to protect it during a war.
Oh, wow.
And so nobody even knew that there was this solid, cold Buddha underneath until they accidentally chipped away at the plaster in the 1950s.
So it was hidden in plain sight.
It was. And I think that's such a powerful metaphor for our own potential. It's there within us. We just have to uncover it.
Okay, I'm ready to start chipping away in the plaster.
Yeah.
So how do we actually start practicing this radical self-care?
Well, Scott is really clear that it's not just about, surface level pampering.
Right. It's not just the spa day.
Exactly. It's about fiercely protecting your time and your energy so you can attend to your mind, your body, and your soul.
It's about going deeper, right? Addressing the root causes of those challenges instead of just putting a Band-Aid on them.
Exactly. And this is something that Scott had to learn himself. He shares his own personal story of burnout.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he had what most people would consider a good job. He was doing all the things that he thought he should be doing, but he still felt deeply unfilled.
So it wasn't about checking boxes or achieving those external markers of success. It was about something deeper.
Exactly. He realized that he was neglecting his own well-being, and he knew he needed to make a change.
And I think that's something a lot of people can relate to, Even if you're outwardly successful, if you're not taking care of yourself on a deeper level, you're not going to feel truly successful.
Right, and that's where this radical self-care comes in. It's about prioritizing your own needs so that you can show up as your best self in all areas of your life.
Okay, so we're talking about going beyond the surface level stuff, but where do we even start?
One of the most important things that Scott emphasizes is the power of our minds.
Okay.
He argues that our thoughts actually create our reality.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not about, toxic positivity or pretending that everything is perfect.
Right.
It's about becoming aware of how our thoughts influence our perceptions, our behaviors, and ultimately the results we create in our lives.
So if you're constantly thinking negative thoughts, you're more likely to experience negative things.
Right. And he uses this computer analogy that I think is really helpful. He says, garbage in, garbage out.
That makes sense.
If you're constantly feeding your mind negativity, that's what you're going to get more of.
Yeah, and sometimes it can feel like our minds just have a mind of their own. Those negative thought spirals can be so hard to break free from.
Absolutely. And Scott delves into this concept of the subconscious mind.
Okay.
He argues that it's far more powerful than our conscious mind, and he actually calls it a brilliant idiot.
Brilliant idiot.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny term, but it really captures the essence of it.
Okay, explain.
So it's brilliant because it's incredibly powerful. It's constantly processing information and influencing our actions. But it's an idiot because it doesn't judge the quality of the information it receives. So if we're constantly feeding it negative self-talk, it's just going to believe it, even if it's not true.
So it's like we're unknowingly sabotaging ourselves with our own thoughts.
Exactly. And that's where the power of self-talk and affirmations comes in.
Okay.
Scott emphasizes how we can actually reprogram our subconscious minds by replacing those negative scripts with empowering ones.
So instead of saying, I'm not good enough, you might say, I am capable and worthy.
Exactly. And it might feel a little silly at first, but the more you repeat those positive affirmations, the more your subconscious mind starts to believe them.
I can see how that could be really powerful. And have you found affirmations helpful in your own life?
You know, I actually have.
Yeah.
It's not just some fluffy feel-good stuff. It's about consciously choosing the thoughts you want to cultivate and then reinforcing them through repetition.
It's like you're planting seeds in your mind.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say someone is listening to this and they're thinking, okay, I want to unlock my potential. I want to achieve my goals. What's an example of an affirmation they could use?
Well, let's say you're feeling stuck or you're doubting your abilities.
Yeah.
An affirmation like, I am capable of achieving anything I set my mind to, can be incredibly powerful.
I like that.
By repeating that, you're essentially planting a new seed in your subconscious mind, one that supports your growth and helps you overcome those self-limiting beliefs.
I love that. Okay, so we're starting to reprogram our minds with those positive affirmations, but I imagine even with that work, those negative thoughts and anxieties can still creep in.
Oh, absolutely.
Scott calls it the monkey mind, right?
Yeah, the monkey mind is that incessant chatter in our heads that often focuses on past regrets or future worries.
Right, and it can feel like it never stops.
It really can. And Scott dedicates a whole section in his book to the importance of taming that monkey mind and calming your nervous system.
Okay.
Because when we're constantly stressed or anxious, it triggers our fight or flight response.
Right.
And that makes it much harder to access our full potential.
So it's like we need to create a more peaceful internal environment to allow that golden Buddha to shine through.
Exactly.
What kind of tools does Scott recommend for calming the nervous system?
He suggests a variety of practices, including deep breathing exercises, spending time in nature, even something called tapping, or EFT, which stands for Emotional Freedom Technique.
I've heard of EFT. It involves tapping on specific acupressure points, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's a way to help release those stuck emotions and energy that can contribute to stress and anxiety.
So it's like hitting the reset button on your nervous system.
Exactly. And these are all simple but powerful tools that you can use anytime, anywhere to help calm that monkey mind.
I think that's especially important these days because we live in a world that is constantly vying for our attention.
It's true. It's like a digital jungle out there.
Exactly. And Scott talks about the importance of mastering our attention in this age of constant distraction.
Absolutely. It's not just about productivity. It's about our well-being. When our attention is constantly fragmented, it impacts our relationships, our ability to focus, and even our overall happiness.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that when I'm constantly checking my phone or scrolling through social media, I feel more scattered and less present.
And it's not just anecdotal. There's actually research to back this up. Scott shares a pretty startling statistic in the book.
Oh, really? What is it?
He says that our attention spans are declining by a whopping 88% year over year.
88%. That's huge.
It is. It's pretty alarming when you think about it.
Yeah. So what does Scott suggest we do to reclaim our attention?
Well, he encourages us to be more intentional with our technology use.
Okay.
He suggests consciously limiting social media, unfollowing accounts that trigger negativity or comparison, and utilizing tools like the screen time feature on your phone to track and manage your digital consumption.
So it's about becoming the guardians of our own attention and consciously choosing what we allow into our mental space.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground already, from redefining success to understanding the power of our minds and managing those distractions. It's clear that Scott sees radical self-care as a foundational piece of the puzzle. But there's another key element that he talks about that ties everything together, and that's discovering our why.
Yes, the why is so important. It's about uncovering that driving force behind our goals and actions, that deep-seated purpose that fuels our motivation and gives us the strength to overcome obstacles.
And Scott actually uses a really interesting analogy to illustrate this.
Well, yeah, he talks about running a marathon.
Right. Tell me about that.
He shares his own experience of hitting a wall during a marathon, and he realized in that moment that his why wasn't just about finishing the race. It was about pushing past his perceived limitations and inspiring others to do the same.
So it was about something bigger than himself.
Exactly. And He also shares a powerful story about his grandfather's involvement in the civil rights movement.
Oh, wow.
And it really exemplifies the profound impact of having a strong why.
So it's like when you have that clear sense of purpose, it becomes your North Star, guiding you through challenges and keeping you on track.
Right, and it gives you that extra push when you need it most.
Okay, so let's say you've uncovered your why, you've tapped into that deep well of motivation. How do you channel that into tangible action?
Well, that's where goal setting comes in.
Okay.
It's about creating a roadmap for achieving your potential.
And Scott emphasizes how important this step is, right?
Absolutely. And here's a really surprising statistic.
Okay, I love statistics.
Research suggests that about 80% of people never actually set goals for themselves.
80%, that's crazy.
I know, it's mind-blowing when you think about how much potential might be left untapped simply because people haven't taken the time to define what they want.
So just by taking that first step of setting a goal, you're already ahead of the game.
Exactly.
But Scott goes even further and says that goal setting isn't just about writing down a wish list, it actually changes the structure of our brains.
That's right. When we set a clear goal, two key areas of our brain light up simultaneously.
The
prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for planning and decision-making, and the amygdala, which is associated with emotions.
Oh, wow. So our brains are like, okay, we have a target, let's get to work.
Exactly. It's like our brains become primed to seek opportunities and develop behaviors that support our vision.
And Scott provides a really practical framework for setting effective goals, right?
Yeah, he suggests that we start by defining our destiny, that big overarching goal we're aiming for. Then we identify the character traits that are needed to achieve it. And finally, we outline the specific habits that will help us develop those traits.
It's like breaking down a seemingly overwhelming goal into manageable steps.
Right. It's about creating a clear path forward.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the power of our minds. But Scott also emphasizes the importance of our physical well-being, especially the power of movement.
Absolutely. And he actually talks about how incorporating regular exercise into his routine had a profound impact on his mental and emotional well-being, particularly when he was going through a demanding career transition.
So it's not just about physical health.
No, it's not. It's about so much more than that. He highlights how exercise enhances mental clarity, boosts mood, increases self-confidence, and even strengthens our resilience in the face of challenges.
I can definitely relate to that. When I work out consistently, I feel more focused and energized, and I'm definitely better equipped to handle stress.
And it's not just you. There's a ton of research that backs this up.
So it's like exercise is a superpower, not just for our bodies, but for our minds.
Exactly. And Scott also advocates for another really important habit, creating a powerful morning routine.
The morning routine. I've heard a lot about the importance of having a good morning routine. Why does he place so much emphasis on this?
Well, he talked about how those first few hours of the day really set the tone for everything that follows.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, by creating a deliberate morning routine, we can proactively shape our experience rather than just reacting to the demands of the day.
I like that, being in control of your day instead of letting it control you.
Exactly. And he shares his own journey of transforming his mornings, how it took effort and discipline, but ultimately led to him feeling more in control, energized, and fulfilled.
So it's about reclaiming those morning hours from the digital deluge and setting yourself up for success.
Right. And it doesn't have to be anything complicated or time-consuming. Even small changes can make a big difference.
So what are some of the key elements of Scott's morning routine?
Well, he emphasizes the power of starting the day with gratitude visualization and setting clear intentions.
That sounds like a great way to align your energy with your goals.
It really is.
Well, we've covered a ton of ground already, from the power of our minds to the importance of movement and creating a winning morning routine, but there's still more to explore. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll be talking about the often overlooked power of relationships, which, as Scott reveals, have a profound impact on our overall well-being and success.
I'm looking forward to that. The research on how our social connections influence our lives is truly fascinating, and I think it might surprise a lot of people.
Stay tuned, everyone. We'll be right back to continue our deep dive into Success Starts Within.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Success Starts Within. Before the break, we were just about to get into this really interesting connection between radical self-care and the power of our relationships.
Yeah.
And it might be surprising to some people just how much our relationships actually influence our lives.
Oh, yeah. It's huge.
Like, truly, how much? Well, it's pretty amazing how much our relationships can shape our well-being and, even our success. Scott talks about a landmark Harvard study.
Oh.
They followed hundreds of people.
Wow.
for over 75 years.
75 years. That's a long time.
It is.
Like almost a whole lifetime.
Pretty much. And what they found was that close relationships, more than money or fame,
Oh, interesting.
were actually the key to happiness throughout people's lives.
Really? So it's not about all the stuff that we think.
No, it's about connection. And those with strong social connections weren't just happier, they were actually healthier and lived longer too.
It's really interesting when you think about how much we as a society focus on, individual achievement and like climbing the ladder and all that.
Right.
But it seems like what really matters
At the end of the day.
is who you're surrounded by.
Yeah, it's powerful. It really is. And it kind of goes back to those old sayings, like you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, or birds of a feather flock together. And I think Scott is really backing that up with the science.
So he's saying it's not just some like fluffy feel-good stuff. This is like actually how our brains work.
Exactly. And he even talks about these fascinating things called mirror neurons.
The mirror neurons.
Have you heard of those?
I have, but remind me what they are.
So these are specialized brain cells that fire not only when we perform an action,
Okay.
but also when we observe someone else performing that same action.
Oh, wow. So like monkey see, monkey do.
Basically.
Yeah.
It's part of why we, unconsciously mimic the behaviors of those around us.
Like if you're around people who are really positive and upbeat, you kind of start to feel that way too.
Right, exactly. And if you're around people who are constantly complaining and negative,
Yeah.
well, you can probably guess what happens.
You start to bring yourself down.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's like we're constantly absorbing the vibes of our social circle, whether we realize it or not.
We are. We really are.
Makes you think twice about who you're spending time with. Okay, so how does all of this tie into the concept of radical self-care?
Well, Scott emphasizes the importance of surrounding yourself with positive, supportive people.
Okay.
People who uplift you and challenge you to grow.
So it's about being intentional with your relationship.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that the company you keep has a direct impact on your well-being.
And I think he even suggests doing like emotional check-ins on your relationships.
Yeah, emotional check-ins are a great way to kind of assess how different people make you feel.
It's like taking inventory.
Right. Do you feel energized and inspired when you're around this person?
Or do you feel drained and depleted?
Yeah, exactly. And our emotions are a really powerful compass. They can guide us towards relationships that support our growth and help us identify those that might be holding us back.
And sometimes that can mean creating boundaries even with people that we love.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to protect our energy and well-being, even if it means having difficult conversations or setting limits in certain relationships.
It can be challenging, but I think it's a really important part of self-care.
It is. It's about putting yourself first.
And it's not selfish to do that.
It's not selfish at all. In fact, it's actually the opposite. Because when you take care of yourself, you're better able to show up for others in a more authentic and meaningful way.
I think there's a lot of guilt around that idea of self-care, like it's somehow indulgent or wrong to put your own needs first.
But Scott really flips that script.
Yeah.
He emphasizes that radical self-care is about taking responsibility for your own happiness. It's not about relying on others to complete you.
Yeah. I think we've all been in those relationships where we're looking for the other person to fill a void within ourselves.
We have.
But true fulfillment comes from within.
Absolutely. And Scott actually shares a really funny anecdote about his wife in the book.
Oh, tell me about it.
So apparently she has this very direct approach to life.
Okay.
And her whole philosophy can be summed up in 2 words.
2 words. What are they?
Address it.
I love that.
Right. It's so simple, but so powerful.
So simple, but so powerful.
Yeah. And what does that look like in practice?
Well, it's about taking ownership of your life and proactively addressing challenges rather than avoiding them.
So instead of sweeping things under the rug or pretending they're not happening, you just tackle them head on.
Exactly. And sometimes that can be uncomfortable or even scary.
Right.
But it's ultimately about empowering yourself to create the life you want.
Okay, so we've talked about the power of our minds, the importance of movement, the benefits of a solid morning routine, and now the impact of our relationships. It feels like we're building this really holistic picture of what radical self-care looks like.
Right. And Scott actually considers one more practice to be essential for unlocking our potential.
Which is?
Meditation.
Oh, meditation. Okay, I was going to guess that.
It seems like everyone's talking about meditation these days.
They are.
But for good reason.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful tool.
So how does Scott introduce meditation in the book? Is it like some mystical thing or? Not at all. He presents it in a very practical way.
Okay.
He introduces it as a way to calm that monkey mind,
Back to the monkey mind.
Yeah, we've got to tame that monkey.
We do.
And so meditation can help us cultivate a more peaceful and focused internal state.
But he's clear that it's not about emptying your mind or achieving some kind of blissful void.
Right. It's about learning to observe your thoughts and emotions without getting swept away by them.
So it's more about creating that space of awareness.
Exactly. And he uses a really great analogy to explain this.
What's the analogy?
The hungry fox and the turtle.
The hungry fox and the turtle.
Yeah, so Mr. Fox, representing our daily stressors,
Okay.
wants to devour Mr. Turtle, representing our inner peace. But Mr. Turtle very wisely retreats into his shell,
Okay.
observing the fox's antics without engaging.
So he's just watching.
Just watching, not getting caught up in the drama.
And eventually, what happens?
Eventually, the fox gets tired and leaves. It's a great visual, right?
It is. Yeah, I can really picture that.
So we can learn to do the same thing with our thoughts and emotions. You know?
Just create that space of awareness and let them pass by.
Let the foxes of our minds come and go.
I love that. Okay, so what are some of the specific benefits of meditation that Scott highlights?
Well, he talks about how meditation can enhance focus, emotional regulation, and self-awareness.
All pretty important things.
Yeah, pretty essential for unlocking our potential, I would say.
Definitely. And he actually cites research by a neuroscientist named Dr. Andrew Newberg.
Yes, Dr. Newberg has done some fascinating work on how meditation can literally reshape our brains.
Wow. So we're not just calming our minds in the moment, we're actually creating lasting change.
Exactly. It's like we're rewiring our brains for success.
And it's interesting because earlier we talked about how goal setting activates the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala.
Right.
Well, meditation activates those areas too.
So it's like a double whammy.
Yeah, like we're training our minds to become more aligned with our goals and desires. Okay, I'm convinced I need to start meditating. But honestly, it can feel a little intimidating to some people. Like, where do you even begin?
Well, Scott emphasizes that it's not about achieving some perfect meditative state.
Right. No one's expecting you to be like a Zen master right away.
Right. It's about starting where you are and gradually building that mental muscle.
And he says that even just 12 minutes a day can make a significant difference.
Yeah, and he actually gives a really practical tip for incorporating mindfulness into your daily life.
What is it?
He says the next time your phone buzzes, chimes, or rings,
Oh, yeah.
don't immediately reach for it.
Mm-hmm.
Look at it, acknowledge the notification, and let it ring.
Resist the urge.
Resist the urge.
Okay, I can try that.
A mini practice of that turtle approach.
Oh,
you know?
Mr. Turtle.
Observe the urge, let it pass, and return to your center.
That's a great idea. It's about reclaiming control of our attention and not letting those external distractions dictate our mental state.
Right. It's about being more mindful and intentional in every moment.
Okay, so I think what's really powerful about Scott's book is that he doesn't just tell us what to think. He actually gives us concrete tools to implement these changes in our lives.
Yeah, he's all about action.
Yeah. What are some of those specific actions that he encourages readers to take?
Well, he offers a framework for creating what he calls an abundant morning,
Oh, yeah. I remember that from the first part of our deep dive.
which incorporates gratitude, practice, visualization, and setting intentions for the day.
So really starting the day on a positive note.
Exactly. And he encourages readers to, really explore their why, set goals that align with their vision, and embrace the power of movement.
And we talked about all of that in the first part.
We did.
Yeah, it's a really holistic approach to unlocking your potential.
It is.
And you know what else I really appreciate about Scott's approach is that he doesn't shy away from the fact that life can be difficult.
Oh, yeah. He gets real.
Yeah, he does. He talks about the importance of addressing challenges head on.
Yeah.
And we talked about this earlier, his wife's mantra, address it. So it's not about pretending that everything is perfect or trying to avoid difficult situations.
No, it's about facing them head on.
And building that inner resilience to weather the storms.
Exactly. And he actually shares some really interesting insights about how stress impacts our brains.
Really? What does he say?
He cites research showing that chronic stress can actually damage the hippocampus,
The hippocampus.
which is the part of the brain responsible for memory and learning.
So it's not just about feeling better in the moment. It can actually have long-term consequences for our cognitive health.
It can.
That's scary.
It is. But it's also empowering because it means that we have the power to change things by managing stress effectively through those practices we talked about, like meditation, exercise, nurturing positive relationships. We're not only improving our emotional well-being, but we're actually protecting our brain health.
So radical self-care is an investment in our future selves. And He even touches on this fascinating field of epigenetics, which is the study of how our environment and lifestyle choices can actually influence our genes.
Yes, he mentions a study about how children who experienced chronic stress had accelerated telomere erosion.
Telomere erosion.
Yeah, so telomeres are these protective caps on the ends of our chromosomes.
Oh, yeah.
And they shorten as we age.
So these kids were essentially aging faster.
They were aging faster at a cellular level.
Wow, that's incredible.
It is. But the good news is that we can also positively influence our telomere length through things like meditation and exercise.
It's like we have more control over our aging process than we realize.
We do, and Scott actually suggests that we could view goal setting as a kind of science for achieving our desires.
Okay, I like that. A science for success.
Yeah, and he uses this analogy of a recipe.
Okay.
Where, if you follow the right steps, you're more likely to get the desired outcome.
So it's not just about luck or chance.
No, it's about understanding the principles, setting clear intentions, and taking consistent action.
And he also reminds us that what we often perceive as luck is often the result of preparation meeting opportunity.
So true.
So by prioritizing radical self-care and cultivating that state of inner well-being, we're creating a more receptive environment for those opportunities to show up.
We're essentially priming ourselves for success.
Wow, we've covered so much ground in this deep dive. I'm so inspired by all of this. What stood out to you most from Success Starts Within?
I think what really resonated with me is Scott's emphasis on the interconnectedness of our inner and outer worlds. He reminds us that true success isn't about those external achievements in isolation.
Right.
It's about cultivating a state of inner well-being that then ripples out into every aspect of our lives.
I love that. It's like that image of a ripple effect. You throw a pebble in the water and it creates these expanding circles.
We start by nurturing ourselves, and that positive energy flows outward.
Impacting our relationships, our work, our communities, the world around us.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And I think Scott's final message is so empowering. He reminds us that the key to unlocking our potential lies within.
It does. He says, we misplace our true power, love, and success when we externalize them. It's a call to action.
It is. It's a call to reclaim that inner power and really embrace the journey of radical self-care.
And I think what's really beautiful about Scott's approach is that he acknowledges that it's a journey, not a destination. There's no need to strive for some unattainable ideal of perfection.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And he encourages us to approach this journey with kindness, patience, and self-compassion.
Yeah, we're all works in progress.
We are.
It's about celebrating the small wins and trusting that consistent effort, even in small doses, can lead to incredible transformation over time.
And there's another one of those old sayings that applies here.
What is it?
The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
So true.
So every act of radical self-care, no matter how small, is a step in the right direction.
That's a really great way to think about it. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into Success Starts Within the Night, I want to leave our listeners with one final powerful question.
Yes.
What small act of radical self-care will you commit to today to nurture your mind, body, and soul and unlock your incredible potential?
It's a good question.
Will you carve out a few minutes for a deep breathing exercise?
Yeah.
To calm your nervous system? Or maybe you'll lace up your shoes and go for a walk or a run.
Get that fresh air.
Invigorate your body and mind. Or maybe you'll choose to disconnect from social media for a few hours and reconnect with yourself through a favorite hobby or by spending time in nature.
So many possibilities.
Or maybe you'll simply take a few moments before bed to write down 3 things you're grateful for.
Gratitude is such a powerful practice.
It is. Whatever it is, choose one small act of self-care and make it a priority today.
Yes.
Because remember, success truly does start within.
It does.
It's a journey that begins with nurturing your mind, body, and soul.
And as you invest in yourself,
you unlock your own potential and create a ripple effect of positivity that extends outward to your relationships, your work, and the world around you.
Beautiful.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Success Starts Within. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep growing. It's been so fascinating, really diving into all of these powerful concepts from Scott's Success Starts Within.
Yeah.
And we've covered a lot of ground already, but I want to circle back to something that really stood out to me, and that's how radical self-care can actually equip us to navigate the challenges that inevitably come up in life.
Yeah, that's a really important point.
Life isn't always sunshine and rainbows.
It's not.
And Scott doesn't shy away from that in the book.
No, he definitely doesn't.
He actually talks about how important it is to address those challenges head on.
Right. And he draws inspiration from his wife's approach to life.
I remember that.
She has that 2-word mantra.
Yeah, address it.
Exactly.
So powerful.
So simple, but so profound.
It really is. And I think it speaks to taking ownership of our lives, not letting fear or avoidance dictate our actions.
Absolutely. It's about choosing to be proactive rather than reactive.
And so how can our listeners, practically apply this address it mentality to their own lives?
Well, I think the first step is really just recognizing that challenges are a natural part of life and growth. It's through those challenges that we learn and evolve.
So it's not about trying to avoid them or pretend they're not happening.
Right. It's about shifting our perspective and seeing them as opportunities for growth.
And I think that's where the inner work of radical self-care really comes in.
Absolutely.
By building that strong foundation of self-awareness and resilience and mental clarity.
We're better equipped to handle those curveballs when they come our way.
Right. It's like you're building up your inner strength so you can weather the storms.
Exactly. And Scott actually shares a really compelling insight about how stress impacts our brains.
Oh, really? What does he say?
He cites research showing that chronic stress can actually damage the hippocampus.
The hippocampus? What's that?
That's the part of the brain responsible for memory and learning.
Oh, wow. So it's not just about feeling better in the moment.
No.
It can actually have long-term consequences for our cognitive health.
It can.
That's pretty scary.
It is. But, the good news is that we have the power to change things.
Okay, good.
By managing stress effectively. Through those practices we've been talking about. Meditation, exercise, nurturing those positive relationships, we're not only improving our emotional well-being, but we're also protecting our brain health.
So radical self-care is an investment in our future selves.
It really is.
And he even talks about this fascinating field of epigenetics.
Yes, epigenetics is so cool.
It is. It's like this whole new frontier of understanding how our lifestyle choices can actually influence our genes.
Right. And he mentions this study about how children who experienced chronic stress had accelerated telomere erosion.
Okay, remind me what telomeres are again.
Telomeres are like these protective caps on the ends of our chromosomes.
Okay.
And these shorten as we age.
So it's like a measure of our biological age.
In a way, yes.
And so these kids were basically aging faster because of the stress.
They were aging faster at a cellular level.
Wow, that's pretty intense.
It is. But the good news is that we can also positively influence our telomere length.
Okay, good.
Through healthy practices like meditation and exercise.
It's empowering to know that we have more control over our health and well-being than we might realize.
Absolutely. We have more agency than we often give ourselves credit for.
And it's interesting because Scott actually suggests that we can view goal setting as a kind of science for achieving our desires.
Oh, I like that. A science for success.
Yeah, and he uses this analogy of a recipe. If you follow the right steps, you're more likely to get the desired outcome.
It makes sense.
So it's not just about luck or chance or being in the right place at the right time.
Right. It's about understanding the principles, setting clear intentions, and taking consistent action.
And one thing that he says that I think is really important to remember is that what we often perceive as luck is actually the result of preparation meeting opportunity.
Oh, that's so true.
So by prioritizing radical self-care and cultivating that inner well-being,
we're essentially creating a more receptive environment for those opportunities to come our way.
It's like we're priming ourselves for success.
Exactly.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into success starts within, I'm curious to hear, what are your biggest takeaways?
Well, I think for me, what really stood out is Scott's emphasis on the interconnectedness of our inner and outer worlds. He reminds us that true success isn't just about those external achievements in isolation.
Right.
It's about cultivating a state of inner well-being that then ripples out into every aspect of our lives.
That's a beautiful image, that ripple effect.
It is.
You throw a pebble into the water and it creates those expanding circles.
And it all starts with us, nurturing ourselves, taking care of our own well-being.
And then that positive energy flows outward, impacting our relationships, our work, our communities, the world around us.
It's amazing.
And I think Scott's final message is so powerful. He reminds us that the key to unlocking our potential lies within us.
It does. He says, we misplace our true power, love, and success when we externalize them.
It's a call to reclaim our power.
It is.
And to really embrace this journey of radical self-care.
And what I really appreciate about Scott's approach is that he acknowledges that it's a journey, not a destination.
It's not about perfection.
No, it's about progress.
And he encourages us to approach it with kindness, patience, self-compassion.
Because we're all works in progress, right?
We are. We're all constantly learning and growing and evolving.
And it's important to celebrate those small wins along the way.
It is, because those small wins add up over time.
They do. And there's another one of those old sayings that comes to mind.
What's that?
The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
So true.
So every act of radical self-care, no matter how small it might seem, is a step in the right direction.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive into success starts within, I want to leave our listeners with one final powerful question.
Hit us with it.
What small act of radical self-care will you commit to today?
To nurture your mind, body, and soul.
And to unlock your incredible potential.
So many possibilities.
Will you carve out a few minutes for a deep breathing exercise to calm your nervous system?
That's a good one.
Or maybe you'll lace up your shoes and go for a walk or a run.
Yeah, get that body moving.
Get those endorphins flowing.
Feel that fresh air.
Or maybe you'll choose to disconnect from social media for a few hours.
Yeah.
And reconnect with yourself through a favorite hobby. Or by spending time in nature.
All great ideas.
Or maybe you'll just take a few moments before bed to write down 3 things you're grateful for.
Gratitude is so powerful.
It is. It really shifts your perspective.
It does.
So whatever it is, choose one small act of self-care and make it a priority today.
And remember,
success truly does start within.
It does.
It's a journey that begins with nurturing your mind, body, and soul.
And as you invest in yourself, you unlock your own potential.
And you create that ripple effect of positivity
that extends outward to your relationships, your work, and the world around you.
Beautiful.
So beautiful.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Success Starts Within.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you feel inspired and empowered to embrace the journey of radical self-care.
We do.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep growing.